Well, I think perhaps I might make a little bit of a start. Um, and I'll just go slow and I'll give a bit of a chance for people to come on in. My name is Shannon Creaney and I am the Birds on Farms Victorian Monitoring Coordinator. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this evening. I hope you have your dinner in front of you or a nice cup of tea or perhaps a wine. Yep, sit back and relax. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians on which I am calling in from today, and that's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And I extend that respect to the traditional custodians of the lands in which you're calling in from today too. I want to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and I acknowledge that sovereignty has never been ceded. As I said, thank you and welcome to our inaugural Your Birds on Farms webinar. Yeah, thank you for taking the time to join us. So the concept behind this bi-monthly webinar series is to really touch on the different topics that underpin birds on farms. And so that can be anything from conservation farm management techniques like dam restoration, weed management, but then looking at temperate woodlands and woodland birds. So bird identification, and really anything that might be of interest to you as participants. This is a way that we can all learn together and also a way to thank you for your contribution to the project. We thought a really great way, though, to kick off the Your Birds on Farms webinar series was to really just give you an overview of where we are in the Birds on Farms project nationally, so our current state and then also our future goals as well. So I'm joined today by Margot Oorebeek and also Ben Humphries, and so the three of us will be speaking today. There's Margot. I can't see where Ben is. uh, And I just want to say there will be, there's a Q&A function and you can ask questions throughout the talk, and we'll try and answer them where we can in the chat. And then at the end, we'll also have more time for Q&A and anything that we've not already addressed. At the end of the talk, we'll also be emailing out to you a survey feedback form. If you can, we'd really appreciate if you'd fill it in for us. And that is to just let us know where we can improve and where we will move forward with the webinar series. So there is a question in there that you can answer about what you would like to see in our future topics. So I think I'm ready to get the ball rolling. So I might start sharing my screen now. Okay. Can everyone see that okay? Margot?
Yep, I can see that okay.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, so as I said, firstly, I'm going to touch a little on the Birds on Farms team. We have grown a lot in the last year, so I'll talk about our staff, who we are, and then I'm going to touch on our monitoring outcomes. Then Ben Humphries, our Southern New South Wales coordinator, is going to join us and talk about our bird-friendly habitat achievements and habitat restoration. And finally, Margot is going to talk about our future goals. So you've already seen Margot, but there she is again in print. So Margot Oorebeek is our manager, and she was formerly the ACT project coordinator. And then we have Scott McPhee, and we're really excited to have Scott join the team. And we've just launched this year our Lockyer Toowoomba Birds on Farms project. So it's very exciting because not only is it going to continue to touch on all of our temperate woodland bird species, but we're also going to be starting to see those tropical species that we don't get to see down here. There's been an awful lot of interest for this project. So Scott is already incredibly busy. And so we're just in the process of looking to advertise for a project officer to support him. So yeah, welcome and well done, Scott. And then in Victoria, we have myself, and I coordinate the statewide monitoring project. And the Victorian statewide monitoring project started in 2017, and that's what kicked off the Birds on Farms relaunch. And then in Victoria, we also have the Yarra Yea region, which is a small pocket of Vic where we focus on helping with habitat planning as well. And our coordinator is Caroline Wilson, and then we have our project officer, Eliza Lamb. And then our Southern New South Wales project kicked off in 2019, and that's Ben Humphries, our coordinator, who will be joining us soon, as well as project officers Rhonda Vile and Darcy Crease. And then our Central New South Wales project coordinator is Jaden Gunn. And so that project's based in the Cowra region. And that project started in 2019. And then we have our ACT YAS project. And that started in 2022. And our project coordinator is Shirali Dave. And then we have Paul Russell, our project officer. And finally, we also have our WA project, which started in 2021. And I am currently covering as coordinator for WA for the interim until we have funding and we employ an ongoing WA coordinator. So I just really want to say a big thank you to the WA participants for being so patient while I wrap my head around everything that's happening over there. I really appreciate it. Now, let's just have a quick look on the map here at our project locations. And you'll see those smaller project areas are actually where we implement active habitat planning as well, which Ben's going to talk a little bit more about. But now I'll touch on our monitoring outcomes. And this is based on 2017 to 2024, sorry. And keeping in mind, as I said, we have those staggering start dates as well. And at this point in time, this is not including Queensland, but exciting things to come for Queensland, no doubt. Now, before I talk about our achievements, I just really want to recap on why there is such a need for monitoring on private rural properties. So 195 species are dependent on temperate woodlands, and 51 of those species are now considered declining or threatened, and that's largely due to fragmentation and habitat loss. Sadly, since European settlement, we've cleared about greater than 85% of our temperate woodlands. And alarmingly, of what's left of that, about 80% is now on private land. And so when you think of that, you start to see there is such an imperative to really understand what is happening on private land. And I mean, sure, we have great knowledge of what's happening in our national parks and in our public spaces, but that really is only now comprising that 20%. So as a landholder, you really have a great opportunity to help protect and preserve our woodland bird species. And so with that in mind, our aims of the Birds on Farms project in terms of monitoring are really to raise community awareness of local birds. So we want you to know what birds are on your property and to care about what birds are there. We want to develop a greater understanding of the composition of woodland birds on private land, and that's what we're doing through this systematic long-term monitoring. And we want to assess how they respond to farm management techniques over time. And so what you'll see if you're entering a survey and you'll see that you're putting in all of that habitat information, that's so we have these variables to understand what is driving these birds on these plots and why. And then finally, we want to preserve woodland habitat. And so with that in mind, I'm really happy to say that we have 551 birds on farms properties now and 1,458 2-hectare plots. And we've had close to 16,000 survey submissions, which is just remarkable. And as I said, there's about 195 species that rely on temperate woodlands, and we've recorded 321 species overall. And so that's including, a lot of our water birds. We have our raptors. So that's recording all those other species as well. And then where I've said 39 cap species, I'm going to go into more detail in a moment, but that's essentially the species underpinned in our conservation action plan. So they're the 51 threatened and declining species that we've outlined in our temperate woodland conservation action plan. But overall, this is 5,198 hours of surveys, which is just hats off to you all because it's an astronomical effort. And I must say that when I did that calculation, that is only including the actual 20 minutes of survey time. And keeping in mind, I've done that based on one person undertaking the surveys, where, as we know, many of you go out and do it in pairs or groups. And this is not even counting the time that it takes to visit a property, to travel there, to travel between plots as well. So we really can't thank you enough. It's a mammoth effort. And I must say that citizen scientists are really the backbone of environmental science in Australia. And it's just so important. So a big thank you to you. Last year alone, in 2024, we recorded over 120,000 birds. So what did we find? So our most cited species, unsurprisingly, the Australian magpie. And then we've also had the superb fairy wren, the red wattlebird, crimson rosella, grey fantail, galah, grey shrike thrush, eastern rosella, willy wagtail, and the white-plumed honeyeater, which you can see in the accompanying photo. This is nice to see, but as I said, what we're really curious about is those conservation action plan species, or the CAP species that we refer to. And you'll often see them highlighted in your results as well. And so with our CAP species, they are outlined, they're sectioned into different guilds. And so we have 10 guilds that really talk about them as functional groups, their habitat, and how we will manage those species. And so I'm going to quickly touch on them, but Ben will go into more detail about what you can do with habitat to better support these species. So first we have our nectar sippers, such as the regent honeyeater, and our nectar sippers are highly nomadic, and that's largely in response to flowering patterns and lerp availability. So these are our species that can also really be susceptible to the effects of our aggressive native species like our noisy miners. Now, I might sound like a broken record to those of you in Victoria. You would have heard this one before, but I do have to mention this because it's just so important. In 2022, in Victoria, one of our Birds on Farms properties actually had a pair of regents showing breeding activity, and they were nest building. And so this was a wild regent honeyeater as well as a leg-banded bird from the breeding population, the captive breeding population. Unfortunately, during that spring, there were some heavy rain events, and they kept the nest through one of those events. But in the next heavy rain event, they did abandon the nest. But why this is so significant is this was the only record of breeding activity for regent honeyeaters in all of Victoria that year, and this is one of Australia's most critically endangered birds. And so I think I like mentioning it because it really highlights the importance of us monitoring on private land and how easily this record in particular could have been overlooked. So then we have our hollow-dependent parrots, such as another critically endangered species, our swift parrot. So our hollow-dependent parrots, as the name would suggest, they require tree hollows, so our large, mature remnant trees. And much the same, we then have our nocturnal predators, like the barking owl, and they also rely on old growth for nesting. Then we have, like in our photo here, the gang cockatoo, our seed-eating parrots. And so they're quite dependent on foraging trees and habitat trees. And they have low reproductive rates as well, typically, these species. So again, it shows that need for old growth, for keeping mature trees, and for having access to hollows. Then we have our ground foragers, like the diamond firetail, which is also always a real joy to see. Now, these are insectivores and grainivores, and they have a high reliance on ground level substrate. And what this means as well is they're really dependent on connectivity of a landscape because they're very vulnerable to predation from feral foxes, from cats, because they are on the ground, so they're very exposed. Then we have our bark and foliage gleaners, sorry, such as the crested shrike tit. Now, these species forage at all tree levels, but they notably rely on the trunks and canopy leaves. And something about them is they have an unwillingness to cross open spaces. They tend to be pretty sedentary. So again, it really highlights that need for connectivity between woodland spaces, or between habitat. Then we have our shrubby understory specialists, such as the white-browed babbler, and they have a strong dependence on shrubs, on coarse woody debris and leaf litter. And so they really struggle without these elements. And in a modified habitat, that's often what we're seeing, is a lack of this understory that's really critical to these species. And then all of our lovely robin species, so the guild that we call our pouncing robins. So an example is the Jackie Winter. So they will inhabit lower to mid-story habitat, and as you might know, they'll perch on those lower branches and pounce down to hunt on insects. So again, they need that lower story habitat, and they're also really open to being affected by aggressive species as well. So they really struggle if there's not that lack of connectivity. And then there's only one species in this guild, and that's the painted honeyeater in our mistletoe specialist guild. And they're largely nomadic and dependent on the fruit of mistletoe. Now, we haven't seen this species yet, or we haven't recorded them on properties, but now that we are incorporating our Queensland project into the Birds on Farms National Project, this is where we might have an opportunity to start recording the painted honeyeater. And then finally, our arboreal insectivore specialist. This is our last guild, and this only has one species as well, which is our 40-spotted pardalote down in Tassie. Now, this species is reliant on white gum, and so that's affected by clearing. And so I think what I'm really trying to show you here when I touch on all these different guilds and these different cap species is they are great indicator species for a health of a property. They need a functional woodland habitat to really thrive. And so if you're building those elements to a property and you're seeing these species, it's a really great indicator of the ecological health of your property. And so that's really what we're looking for. And these are the species that we really want to protect. Now, what I am going to do now is hand it over to Ben. I'll keep the slideshow up, but I'll ask Ben to join now, and he can chat a little bit about making your property bird friendly and our habitat achievements. So thank you. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you, Shannon. Very well done. Thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight. I come to you from Wiradjuri country in southern New South Wales. I'm based in Albury, and it's my pleasure to walk through some possible suggestions that you might like to consider for your place. So, like our landholder in the hang on a minute. So, like the landholder here, just kicking back on the property, wondering what else they can do to help save birds. And I'd like you to give that some thought tonight as we scroll through. My favourite thing about bird watching is that it helps connect me to country. So I'd also like to extend my respect to the traditional owners of the land I'm on, the Wiradjuri people, but also traditional owners right across Australia who've managed the land and continue to manage the land in such a way and for such a long period of time, in such a way that we have birds to enjoy in our lives today. We wake up in the morning and we've got bird song in our lives. And by bird watching, I am constantly listening and looking, but I'm connecting with the bird. I'm putting myself in the position of the bird, and I'm thinking about things like, where am I going to find cover after dark or when predators come after me? Where am I going to find my next drink of water? That could be at your place. Where am I going to find my next feed? Where am I going to find a mate when it's time to reproduce? So by thinking about those things, that helps me to connect with the birds, but I'm also connecting to nature. And we all know as birders that is a very important part of our well-being and our mental health. So that's my favourite thing about bird watching. I hope you've been able to think about some ideas for your place. Think about some habitats. Think about some places that you love on your place where we might be able to suggest some bird-friendly actions. Thank you, Shannon. So some achievements of the Birds on Farms program so far. Remember, this is since 2017, and this is spread across now 6 projects right across southeast Australia, from southeast Queensland right across to WA. So we have managed to take the data that lots of you here tonight have busily helped us collect over the years. 16,000 surveys, in fact. Thanks, Shannon. That's a fantastic citizen science effort, and I'm very grateful for everyone's help to collect that information. From that, I find the birds are a real hook for landholders getting involved in bird-friendly actions. We often find conversations in the field with landholders saying, how did we go last season? How did we go last year? How's my bird list going? Am I going to get to 100 species? This is exciting. What do I have to do to attract more birds to my place? And those conversations very quickly go from the data collection and the monitoring and connecting with those birds, learning your birds, and move through to conversations about how we could perhaps help support some restoration action on the property. So 536 hectares protected using some of the means that I'm going to work through in a moment. A fantastic achievement. Landholders that get supported by BirdLife, various forms of funding from private trusts right through to our good friends at the state governments who are backing our Birds on Farms programs and sharing some co-investment that we can use for some of these bird-friendly actions. So landholders, when they're supported by BirdLife, receive or sign what we call a handshake agreement, a 10-year stewardship agreement where people can continue to maintain those funded actions for a period of 10 years. And we continually monitor those for the life of the grant funding. So the 97 landholders currently have received or are receiving financial support to roll out some of these bird-friendly actions, which is fantastic. We also offer a free service, woodland bird habitat plans for people in our project areas. If people have ideas about some restoration actions they'd like to implement, we help them to plan those, put them in a habitat plan. Those are complete with budgeted, costed actions, and then we can take those, the landholder can take those plans and work with other funding bodies to apply for grant funding to implement, or perhaps other organisations, and also your local land care community groups can often get involved and take those habitat plans up. And so far we're rolling out over 100 habitat plans have been issued and either in the process of being implemented or shared with the landholder and shared with community groups to seek funding. Thanks, Shannon. If you haven't seen this Bird-Friendly Farms guide yet, in collaboration with Local Land Services, this guide came out last year and we're proud to share this. It's a wonderful read of all the ideas that you might like to consider for your property. So when landholders come to us in the field saying, gee, these birds are great, I'm building my list, I'm really getting stuck into this, because we all know as birders, it's super catchy. Once you get started, it's a great hook. So people then can refer to this document and consider some of those ideas that you might like to roll out on your place. And I'm going to roll through these. They're in no particular order of priority, so I'm just going to roll through these one by one and share some lovely images that we've collected of these some of these actions that we've managed to roll out on various farms. And I see some of you have joined us tonight, so Shout out to those people who see images of their place. Thanks for sharing. Looking forward to getting out there soon and seeing what we can find in our autumn surveys. Thanks, Shannon. Okay, here's a team from, I believe this is Kinglake Landcare grant that has funded the construction of these nest boxes. So I've got 3 simple points to share with you about nest boxes if you're considering putting nest boxes on your place. The design is very important. What can go wrong is we end up designing homes for unwanted. So things perhaps like starlings who may move in, miners being the common miners, who may move in if we haven't considered which target species we're after. So if you think back to Shannon's list of the CAP species, the threatened and declining species, BirdLife has lots of resources that we can help you identify the size of the box, the dimensions, the height it's got to be, the size of the hole is very important at the front, whether or not they have direct access or they have to climb up straight into the hole, those sorts of things it's important to consider so that we're not designing a box for birds perhaps that you don't want to attract to your place or more of to your place. Installing them, we can share lots of ideas about the best ways to install those such that we're not having a detrimental impact on the tree, and we're going to extend the life of those nest boxes such that they're remaining effective. The biggest, I suppose, problem with nest boxes is they fall out of trees. So they do require some monitoring. And if you're going to put them up, you might as well monitor them. If you can't get a pole camera or some sort of field surveillance camera, just make sure you can get access to them every now and again and at least observe them with your binos and see who's coming and going. And you may need to make adjustments. For example, the photo down on the left corner shows the myna baffle, M-Y-N-A, as in the common myna, the myna baffle. The miners like to go straight into the hole. Lots of Australian native birds like to go up, perch sometimes or crawl up and then into the hole. So a simple myna baffle can help to tailor make your nest box to suit our natives that desperately need nesting hollows in our agricultural landscape. Thanks, Shannon. So I'm going to run through these, what I consider simple and fun actions that you can implement at your place. The coarse woody debris is so important. As Shannon pointed out, one of our CAP specialist groups, the guilds, is the pouncing robins. If there's nothing to perch on, to pounce from, you won't have robins. It's that simple. So if we can retain the coarse woody debris or reinstate it, if you've got it, you're collecting it somewhere else on the block and you can move it into one of your conservation habitat areas, that's fantastic. Shannon, if you can bring up just that one. So this is a classic scenario of some good quality habitat. We're missing a few shrub mid-story layers in this particular photo, but it's a good cover of the coarse woody debris or simply branches and logs on the ground. These pouncing robins would love this sort of thing. And often people who leave this sort of habitat for birds on their ground in their conservation habitat areas are criticised by neighbours, perhaps saying, oh, you know, you're what's going on over the fence there? That's a bit of a fire risk, isn't it? What's going on? It can be still managed with grazing for a conservation management tool. And what you'll find is you'll have robins like the next slide, thanks, Shannon, like the scarlet robin. That's since been changed to the red cap, and you all know that because you're all sitting the test later on. The red-capped robin, not the scarlet robin. Don't put that on your survey form. The robins will be at your place because guess what? Nature isn't neat and tidy. So if your neighbour's tidying up and raking everything into piles and burning it, you'll have the robins at your place. They won't have these beautiful red-capped robins in this case. Thanks very much, Shannon. Okay, here's a couple of crazy characters. that we're all experiencing moving through our landscape. The one on the left, it's important to recognise that they are our native noisy miners, a very bossy bird. The ones on the right, they're moving through where I am here in Albury. I blame the Hume Highway for these guys, who are the sort of the streetwise version of the native noisy miner. So these guys, if you go to the MCG in Melbourne, this will be the dominant bird you see at the MCG. They've moved up the highway. They are really good at populating those urban environments, and they're now moving in on competing for hollows is one of the things they'll do, competing for food, obviously, getting around in little gangs. So BirdLife can help you deal with these guys if you have numbers getting out of control. One of the actions that BirdLife encourages is people to keep an eye on how many of the both species you've got, but things like the noisy miner, they're getting around in groups and they are bossing everything they can assert dominance over, particularly your small birds, your thornbills, your wrens, your robins. The little honey eaters, they just won't be there if these guys have their way. So the way to try and combat that is to plant shrubs. If you can up the diversity and the density of your mid-story layers, you will keep these guys at bay and provide some nice shelter and cover for those smaller species. Traditionally, we planted single tree rows along our fence lines. Those days are gone. These guys have moved into that habitat and they love it because it doesn't take much energy to chase those small birds out of a single tree row. But when you go along and you do a 5-row tree row, 30, 40 metres wide, with a line of trees down the middle and shrubs and ground covers along both sides, you're creating that cover that those small birds need. And these guys simply won't bother patrolling those areas because it's just going to burn up too much of their energy. Thanks, Shannon. Okay, simple and fun ways to enhance the habitat at your place. This is up in the Narrial Valley, some creek restoration. That's a common way to build the habitat at your place. Next one, Shannon. Lots of opportunities there. Enhanced dams are a real favourite across lots of Birds on Farms properties, and we've seen some great success revegetating, increasing the water quality for your stock, increasing the water access by having controlled access through the wings, allowing reduced erosion, and you're then able to revegetate with trees and shrubs, obviously avoiding the main dam wall to avoid creating leaks with large trees. But what you're also doing, not just creating bird habitat, you're creating a space on your property that you're really going to enjoy, and you're going to enjoy showing off and taking your friends to. So there's lots of benefits of enhancing your dams. And to be honest, at the moment here in Albury, it's dry as a chip. And if you've got access to a stunning little mirror pond like this, you're going to find yourself going there at sunset with your friends, your birding mates, and showing off your new skills. Thanks, Shannon. Here's another good example, a little bit of erosion leading down into the dam, and a big gap, as you can see, from that woodland down to the edge of the dam. So if the next slide comes up, Shannon, you can drop 200 plants in there in an afternoon with your friends and create that connectivity that Shannon was talking about earlier, that so many of these cap species, the threatened and declining ones, need, and minimise your erosion. Have 1,000 cups of tea between you all and have a great afternoon out creating habitat for birds. Thanks, Shannon. One of my favourites here, remnant protection. We've got to look after these paddock trees. It takes about 80 years to create a hollow in a mature eucalyptus tree. So if you've got some and you're looking to protect them, the Birds on Farms bird-friendly guide has lots of suggestions in terms of how to orientate your fencing around those paddock trees to still create shelter and shade for your stock. You're also helping to enhance the shrub layer by planting around underneath those. These are the golden oldies, and on the left there you can see a very simple 5-star picket weld mesh fence that's protecting that tree. The cattle cannot reach over that and chew the bark and ring bark that tree, which reduces a lot of stress around the roots at the base of the tree, but also reduces the chance of that tree being ring barked and being put under additional stress. So for $250, you can save a 250-year-old tree. Who doesn't want to do that? Thanks, Shannon. Protecting your remnants is important. If you've got remnants, that's the foundation. That's what we need to build on. Some people are unlucky and you have to start from scratch. If you've got remnants, you can see here, this is the before shot, if you like. Shout out to Sue and Brian. If you've got one fence running down one way and you're able to create a corridor linking habitat through your remnants, you're protecting those, and you can do some infill planting underneath as well. There you base those 250-year-old trees. As far as our nectar sippers are concerned, the painted honeyeaters, the black-chinned honeyeaters, the little lorikeets, those guys that are moving through our landscape and using your property as a little recharge station, those 250-year-old paddock trees that you're saving are producing more nectar and better quality nectar than your younger generations of planted eucalypts. So we need to look after those guys. That's your foundation. If you can run another fence down one side and do some infill planting, let's see what that looks like, Shannon. Wonderful. So creating a corridor, that'll be 20 or 30 metres wide. You've still got plenty of coarse woody debris that's left on site. You've got gate access. Once again, 1,000 cups of tea, get your mates round, plant those out. A little bit of ripping, we'll talk about that in a moment. Protected your remnants, and now you're creating the understory that's going to keep those pesky, noisy miners out of your new habitat corridor. Once again, you've created a site that you're going to enjoy going to visit and monitoring birds on your property. Thanks, Shannon. Let's check out what happens next year. There you go. You go back next year. Just in the foreground, there's a, what's that, an acacia dilbata, silver wattle, something of the sort. Within 12 months, this is amazing turnaround. You've got some shrubs starting already, and you just will not have those small birds, the wrens, the thornbills, those little warblers close to the ground. They won't move through that habitat until you've got that that dense cover for them. So 12 months after, you can have your mid-story getting started. It's very rewarding and very simple and fun. Thanks, Shannon. Okay, what's this one? 4 simple steps. This is how simple it can be. You're looking across your paddock and you're thinking that tree row that we planted across there along our fence line or paddock boundary, I want to link that up with what I've got with another paddock boundary here behind me. So greenfield planting is something we do a lot of, where we'll take a section like this, and once again, in the past, we might have divided that and put a single tree row through there, but we know we're creating noisy miner habitat. So let's see what we can do with this one, Shannon. 4 simple steps. There we go. So we've got to spray it out. You can crash graze it. You've got to spray it out at least once, ideally twice before you come back. You want to get your fencing almost set up. Another one there. Thanks, Shannon. With some help from our good friends at the New South Wales government, and in this case, John Deere, you're able to do some rip lines, 5 rip lines, it looks like, a few metres apart. You've got to do your rip lines at the right time of year where you're going to fracture the soil. Don't want it too wet, don't want it too dry. Then you can get in there with your mates and 1,000 cups of tea, and that's where the fun starts. You're putting in new habitat for birds. You're creating trees that in 80 years are going to be your legacy to the landscape, and you're going to be creating hollows that are going to provide places for these hollow-seeking birds. Thanks, Shannon. Wonderful opportunities to get your mates together, your birding mates, your local community groups, and coming together to get this habitat going at your place. This is another one from a winery down in Victoria, I think. Thanks, Shannon. Working together to restore habitat. Oh, look out, it's all happening. That's how fast it happens. See, it's simple. Let's have a look at this one. Thanks, Shannon. That's great. Let's have a look at the big sky of Henty. Next one, please. There we go. So on the left, that's what we're thinking about. What do we do? Let's go 30 metres wide, direct seed it, a little bit of fencing for promoting either direct seeding or your natural regeneration. If you've got the remnants, you can give it a couple of years and see what comes up. Thanks, Shannon. This is one we put in just a fence and a gate to allow the birders in. And we're monitoring this. On the left, it had sheep going through it as we were doing this. They were taken off that country. You can see a lot of the gold dust wattles beyond the stake on the left, pruned down to a stick. On the right-hand side, we went back a year later to monitor, and those gold dust wattles were full of leaf and flowering in just 12 months with a simple change to the grazing regime. Thanks, Shannon. Thanks to our good friends at the state government. I'm pretty happy with the fencing and that gate to let the birders in to tell their mates all about it. Any questions? Let's catch them at the end. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Shannon. How about Margot runs through where we're off to next?
Thank you, Ben, and thank you, Shannon. That was fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much for running through what we've achieved. And it's amazing to see. I did a quick calculation of the hours of survey that have been done. It turns out we've done a collective 216 days of surveys across the project, which is absolutely amazing. And I'm sure that with the new projects that are happening in Queensland and the growth still of our current projects, you know, we're going to hit the full year of surveys quite soon. And the other thing is, if people are interested, Ben mentioned that there were 536 hectares of woodland, and you know that has been either protected or created throughout this project. If you know, we have some cricket lovers. The field of the MCG, the playing field, is 206. Sorry, it's 2.6 hectares in total. So if you look at that, we have now protected and created 206 playing fields of the MCG. So that's a huge effort. And I think everybody who's participated in this project and has helped us with it should be absolutely pleased with themselves that this has been achieved. And I also want to say the staff has been fantastic. You know, we have a lot of staff here. We've had a few, you know, old staff as well. I know some of them are watching at the moment. I would like to thank everybody who's been working on this project. It's been absolutely fantastic, and you guys are an absolutely amazing team to work with. All right, Shannon, hit me. All right, so as mentioned, I would be talking about what we're doing with the future of the Birds on Farms project. So of course, we're going to continue the way we've been going. Of course, we're going to be, you know, continuing with the monitoring, and we're going to be growing the project. And we're working on the habitat planning because that's the essence of the project. So of course, that's going to go ahead full steam. But we want to do a few additional things. So one of the things we wanted to do is the webinar series, so the Your Birds on Farm series. As Shannon mentioned at the start, we would like to do this sort of on a bi-monthly basis and just give people updates about what's happening at the project, you know, what we've achieved so far, what results we found from doing the surveys, but also providing people with information about how you can restore a farm dam or how you can, you know, plant and revegetate an area, but also like the more fun things in life, you know, about bird identification and just highlighting all those terrible little thornbills that nobody can recognize. And just, yeah, we'll get an expert in that can immediately tell you how to check them all out and how to tell them all apart. So that's one of the things we want to do to, increase our engagement with you guys. Shannon. And then, of course, we have our on-ground community engagement, which we've been doing from the start. And that's really how we got to know most of you. It's where we first, meet with people. People express their interest and say, what's the project about? What are you doing? I'm a bird lover. Can I help out? Or I'm a landholder. And just very interesting to see what's happening on the property. So community engagement is a massive part of our project, and we're definitely going to go full steam ahead with that. We love doing it because we really love meeting the people and having these conversations. So what we're doing is, we regularly do presentations to land care groups or, farming groups, and just tell us what the project is about, or if they particularly have an interest in one particular part of the project, we can touch on that. We do workshops and training days. So you'll see below on the left-hand corner, there's 2 photos of the training days that are being held. One was in southern New South Wales, the top one, and the bottom one was for ACTS. Both training days where we take people out into the field and we, tell them some of the finer points about bird identification, and we just have a jolly good time walking around, seeing all the birds. And really also, it's a great opportunity for people to get to know each other that are all participating in this project. It's landholders that are joining us that just want to know more about the birds, and there's volunteers, bird watchers that are joining us that either are just helping us out as well with these days, or they're just keen on getting, more knowledge about bird watching. And plus they're bird watching volunteers, so they always, they won't miss out on an opportunity to go bird watching. Then we've got some planting days, which are always fantastic because that's a good community feeling that you're putting plants into the ground, especially if this is happening in an area that you live in and you can actually go and visit those areas and you can see the trees grow. That's just an amazing feeling. And then we do plant giveaways, but we also meet a lot of people by standing on shows and field days. So yeah, it's fantastic to do the community engagement and to talk to everybody, and we're definitely not letting up on that. Shannon. So in the last couple of months, we've been working towards making some practical information for people outside of our project areas. So most of you will be participating in one of the project areas that Shannon has mentioned, but we do get a lot of interest from people outside of those project areas. And for a long time, we weren't able to, help them out other than just giving direct information via phone call or an email. So we've been trying to figure out ways of giving some more practical information to a lot of people, but also it's information that can support the people that are already participating with us. So what we've done recently is we've created a series of Birds on Farms videos. These include videos that show, what the project Birds on Farms is about. There's a video on the top 5 tips for creating a bird-friendly farm. But there's also a video that shows you how you do the surveys for the Birds on Farms project. So this is really handy. If we want to train new volunteers, we can just send them the video and it'll show you and how to do the surveys, and people are visual beings. So, having a video is usually easier than trying to read a 10-page document. So hopefully this will make life a little bit easier for a lot of people. And then a lot of the videos on there are also testimonials from people that are actually working with us. So they're testimonials from landholders that are participating in our monitoring program. There's landholders that have participated in some habitat restoration, and there's also videos of bird watchers that are participating in the project. So it's nice to see, that these people are all enthusiastic, and it's great to see that what we've been achieving on those properties. The other thing that we've created in the last couple of weeks or months is the Bird Friendly Farms Guide. I'll do a shout out to Chris Timewell, who's on this meeting. He is like a major drive for this project, and he's done a lot of writing. So thank you very much, Chris. We produced a Bird Friendly Farms Guide, and that really is a guide to everybody who wants to create habitat for birds on their property. It has a little bit of information about everything, but really it's divided into sort of 4 areas. The first up why would you want to create a bird-friendly farm? What are the benefits? Why is it necessary? What birds can I find on my property? That's all covered in that. Then it mentions some habitat features on rural properties that are important for birds. So if you're thinking back to the presentation that Ben just did and all the steps and projects that he's mentioned, those are all discussed in detail in this booklet, and we'll give you guidelines on how to achieve those. And then it has a little section on managing the threats for birds and their habitats. And this will go into such things as predator control, rodenticide use on your property and things like that. And then, of course, how to get started, which is the all-important thing, because that's what a lot of people are struggling with. So this is a fantastic resources that we now have and that we can add and send to people outside of our project area, but of course also to the people here that are already participating. So if you're interested, please go to our website, which is the BirdLife website, and go to the Birds on Farms webpage, and it has the links to all the videos and the booklet. Shannon. And then we have now started working on even a new different aspect of it. Like I said, we have a lot of people that are interested, but that are outside of our project areas. So we don't have the ability to visit their properties and talk to them and see what they can do to improve their farms. So what we want to do is we want to create an online learning course. That way people can, start in their own time, and they can run through the course whenever they want, and they can basically sort of learn about how to create a bird-friendly farm. That will be one of the topics. The other topics they can do is actually creating your own habitat restoration plan. So we will give instructions throughout the plan, and you follow all these dot points that will lead you through how to create a habitat restoration plan, which hopefully eventually, once you've finished it, it will come up with a similar plan that we can design for you. So we will come up with the actions that you want to do on your property, but it also comes with the costings for all those actions. So you have all the information necessary to start these habitat restoration plans. And if you want to apply for funding for that, you have all that information available as well, what they will ask in the funding guide. So this is realistically for us a very good way of reaching people outside the project area and really engaging with everybody who owns temperate woodland habitat on their property. So that is anything from southern Queensland all the way through to South Australia. We have a little gap in the Nullarbor, but then we incorporate the whole of WA and of course Tasmania. So that's a huge amount of people that we have the potential to engage with. And this online learning course is the way we hopefully can go about it. But this is in the making at the moment. So we're hoping to have the course completed by the middle of next year. So we'll keep you up to date on how it's going. Shannon. And I'll have to thank a few people because this project is absolutely not, we can't do it without the fantastic people that are providing the support for us to do this work. So we have one very generous private philanthropist who sponsors this project. He's been absolutely fantastic, or they've been absolutely fantastic as a couple, and really want to thank them. But we also receive funding from Very Trust, the Ross Trust, Corella Fund, Wood Foundation, and Nick Butcher. These are all philanthropic organizations. So it's purely out of the kindness of their heart that we can do this work. Then the on-ground habitat restoration is sponsored by the New South Wales government via the Saving Our Species grant program and the Environmental Trust program and the Foundation for National Park and Wildlife. But it's also then sponsored by equity trustees in Victoria. And we have partner organizations that we absolutely shouldn't forget. Holbrook Landcare, West Hume Landcare, and Corowa District Landcare are direct partners in our programs, but we work with a lot of landcare groups in the region. We work with Greening Australia, we work with Melbourne Water, we work with council areas. So we want to thank everybody who has contributed to this program. It wouldn't have been possible without you. Shannon. And of course, I want to thank everybody here who's been participating in these projects, because even though we get the funding from somebody else, if you hadn't been there and if you hadn't decided to participate in this project, we wouldn't have gotten anywhere. So it's all thanks to you. And we just want to say, a big thank you from the entire project team. And yeah, hopefully we have a few good years ahead of us still, and we can restore, well, I'm saying another 536 hectares of woodland. So that's it. That's sort of the update of what's been happening in Birds on Farms for the past, well, since 2017. So that is almost 8 years now. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, pop them into the Q&A, and we can answer them. I've noticed that a few people have put questions into the chat. I've answered them while I was going along. But if you do, can you put them in the Q&A so we could, it's easier for us to follow it. I see that, Ben, you've answered the question as well about rip lines. Ben, there's a question here from Bernadette Mullaney about revegetating green fields. So if you're revegetating a green field, do you put in woody debris after ripping and before planting? Or would you do it another way?
Yeah, I agree with Bernadette's suggestion. I just wanted to thank those people who shared their knowledge about what's been productive for them with their rip lines. So I agree. Yeah, why not put the woody debris in after you've ripped it and before you plant it? In some cases, depending on the size of your bits of timber, you may put it in and position it before you actually finish off the fence. So it depends on, I suppose, what you're moving around. But that's great to see people sharing those ideas. Thanks.
Fantastic. I'll just wait for a moment and see if anybody else comes through. Oh, there we go. Apparently, Q&A is not visible on some people's sites. So if that's the case, please put your questions into the chat and we can work on that. Thanks, Rhonda, for letting us know. And can I say personally, I love to actually see all the people that have been answering or asking questions in the chat and see all the names popping up for the people that have been watching, because we do personally know quite a few people, and it's just fantastic to see them. So especially some people we don't, see on a regular basis, but it's fantastic to see that you're still, actively involved in the project and still love what we're doing. We've got Shelley, who said, I would love to visit a real working farm in Victoria that has done some revegetation, especially in enhanced dam. Shelley, there are some people out there that do them. We do work with a couple of active, agricultural properties that are, productive, that have a large cattle property or have a lot of sheep. They are out there. Quite often what you can do is, if there's a group that is around, like a land care group in your area, they quite often do farm visits. Other areas that you can see is regenerative farming groups. They quite often do visits to other properties as well, so that's an option that you might be able to do. If you're in Yarra we do some, site visits sometimes with people. But since Victoria is mostly the monitoring state, and seeing that, Shannon is the only person working there 3 days a week, she doesn't have the capacity to organize field days. So I would definitely advocate going to your local land care group and asking whether they have any visits planned to areas like that, or otherwise seeing if there's a regenerative farming group that might be doing those types of property visits. That might be helpful. We have a question from John Carruthers. I don't know, Ben, if you're interested in answering that.
Yeah, sure, John. So I think, Margot, the best way to get in touch if you're interested in the habitat plan is there's a expression of interest application opportunity through our website. So on the BirdLife Australia website, on the Birds on Farms page, you'll be able to find your way to contacting us with an expression of interest, depending on where you're based, John. So thanks for that inquiry.
Shelley, can I also mention somebody has replied to your question in the Q&A. Jared Laurie has just asked you where you're based. So if you want to, I'm guessing Jared potentially has an opportunity for you to visit a farm. So if you can reply to Jared, that's probably going to work well.
Thanks, Jared.
All right, let's see. I think somebody put on.
Thanks, Mitchell, for your suggestion about not doing straight rip lines. There's a bit of support for that. So if you're after that natural feel, then yeah, sure, put your coarse woody debris in and then rip around it.
There's a question from Zoe Stanford. Are there elements to a property that would make it ineligible to be part of the Birds on Farms programs? Zoe, no, not immediately. So when we're doing the surveys, we do surveys on 2 hectares, like 2 hectare survey sites. So the minimum requirement to participate in the surveys is that you have a continuous woodland habitat that is 2 hectares large. So we need to have the 2 hectares needs to be one in the same type of habitat. So it has to be a woodland type habitat. If you have that, then please get in contact with us. As Ben said, that can be done via the website. The other one is if you are looking at doing a habitat plan with us, we always love to have a chat with you. Most of the time, we only generate habitat plans for properties that are approximately 10 hectares or larger, because otherwise, like creating a habitat costs a lot of time and money. And we can still help you out if you're smaller than that, but we'll probably just give you direct advice on how to do it. And you can have a look at the Birds on Farms, the Bird Friendly Farm Guide as well, if you're smaller than that. Other than that, there's not really any restrictions. So whether you are an operating farm or whether you are a lifestyle block or you've bought a property for conservation, all those properties can be included into the Birds on Farms program. Ben, Sophie had a question. Is it okay not to rip first? We don't have access to a ripper.
Yeah, sure. Yep, if you're just digging the holes manually, then go for your life. And, you know, I think that's why there's a fair bit of support for not going in straight lines. If it's easier for you to go in straight lines, then that's fine too. But if you've got the tools to get around your woody debris and dig holes where you need them, sure. That's ideal. There's the land care groups often have the potty putki, it's called, where you can dig the hole, drop the plant in as you go. So see if you can get hold of one of those.
Great. Then we've got Sarah, who asked a question about the gang photo that was in Shannon's presentation. So Shannon, you had the photo of the gang sitting in a hawthorn tree. And they had somebody say to them that the hawthorn berries are not good for food source for them. So can we verify if the hawthorn berries are a problem or okay? Sarah, it really depends on which perspective you take for whether they're good. They don't harm the gangangs at all. It's actually a rather big food source for the gangang cockatoos. The problem is that the hawthorn is an introduced species. And if the gangangs feed on the hawthorn berries and they fly off, they'll defecate and they'll, deposit the seeds a little bit further on. So they are spreading the hawthorn trees. And that's probably what people meant when they said it's not great to have hawthorn trees for gangang cockatoos. It's mostly to do with the spread of the pest plant. It's nothing to do with the health of the gangang.
Margot, there's one there from Tim. Thanks, Tim. If you can't rip amongst those trees, we don't recommend ripping under drip lines or under the trees. So just be careful with the post hole borer. Sometimes you can glaze up the hole so much that the roots of the little tube stock find it hard to get started. So depending on how dry or how moist your soil is, yeah, by all means, try your post hole and see how glazed up the inside of those holes is. Otherwise, great job for the kids digging the holes.
Yes. Shelley, also just as an aside, I saw that you're based in the Yarra-TA area. So if you want, just send us an email via the Birds on Farms website, or go into the onto the website and basically just go to our interest form and just fill out that you're interested in doing a site visit. And then I'll send it through to the people from the Yarra-TA project, and Caroline or Eliza will get in touch with you to let you know if they have anything like that planned, and whether there's an opportunity to have a visit to one of the working farms that has a regenerated dam. So yeah, please send us an email, and I'll forward it on to Caroline and Eliza. All right. Anything else that you've seen in the chat, Ben?
No, just want to thank everyone who's still here. Thanks for sticking around and contributing and sharing your knowledge.
All right. I think that's pretty much it. Well, in that case, Shannon, would you like to take the honors?
I would. If I just want to say, if there are any questions that we've missed as well, we will be able to follow up with you. So we'll make sure we'll have a look and make sure there's not anything that we've missed. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us for our first webinar. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate your effort, and hopefully you can start to see now that you part of something bigger, and we're really all making a difference together. So thank you, and thanks for your time tonight. And please remember, if you can, to fill in that feedback form so we can improve what we're doing. Yeah, thank you, and thanks to Margot and Ben as well. That was fantastic. I was enthralled.
Well done, Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a lovely evening.
Bye.